A man at the theater with his wife goes out to the toilet at the intermission, but goes through the wrong door and finds himself in the garden. As it is too well kept to think of using the ground, he lifts a plant out of a flower pot and uses that, then replaces the plant. He goes back and finds the next act has already begun. What has happened so far in this act? He asks his wife in a whisper. You ought to know, she says coldly. You were in it. Man lives in unconsciousness. He is not aware, not at all aware. You can watch any person. You can watch yourself. Slowly, and you will see so many unconscious acts happening that it will be almost unbelievable how you have lived up to now. You are lying for no reason at all. And when you catch yourself red-handed lying, you will be surprised. Why were you lying in the first place? Because there is no reason. You are not going to gain anything out of it. Just a habit, just a mechanical routine. You become sad for no reason at all. Now there are a few researchers who say you can make a calendar of your moods, and I find their research significant. You can really make a calendar of your moods. Just go on noting down for 1 month, Monday in the morning how you felt, and in the afternoon, and in the evening, and in the night, just at least 8 times per day. Go on noting every day at the exact same times how you feel, and within 3 or 4 weeks you will be surprised that on each Monday at the same time you feel exactly the same. Now this cannot be because of any circumstances outside, because each Monday they are different. It is something inner, although you will find excuses outside, because nobody wants to feel responsible for his own misery. It feels good to make others feel responsible for your misery, and you can find excuses. You can invent them if they are not there. That's where people have become very, very creative. In fact, their whole creativity consists in creating excuses. Why am I sad? And you can find 1,001 reasons. The wife said this, and the children are not behaving well, and the neighbors, and the boss in the office, and the traffic and prices are rising high, and you can find 1,001 things. They are always there, and you can paint the whole world very gloomy, dark, and then you can feel at ease that it is not your responsibility that you are sad, but the same world. And Tuesday morning you are feeling very bubbly, very joyous, radiant. Again, you can find excuses. This is a beautiful morning, and the sun, and the birds, and the trees, and the sky, and all is so full of light. Such a beautiful morning. You can find excuses for all kinds of moods. But if you make a diary of 4 to 8 weeks, you will be really shocked that everything that happens to you is almost completely dependent on you. You have an inner wheel that goes on moving, and the same spokes go on coming on top again and again. Yes, there are circumstances outside, but they are not causes. At the most, they trigger. A certain mood that is bound to happen is triggered by a certain circumstance. If this circumstance were not there, then something else would have been the triggering point, but it was bound to be triggered. People who have lived in isolation have become aware of this fact. Buddha used to send his disciples for isolation. In the new commune we are going to have underground caves, so I can send you for 1 month's isolation. Absolute isolation. You disappear from the world, so you cannot blame any circumstances outside because there is nothing outside you in the walls of the cave. And you will be surprised. One day you are happy, one day you are unhappy, one day you are feeling very greedy, one day you are feeling angry, and there is nobody who has insulted you, irritated you. One day you will find you are telling lies to yourself because you cannot find anybody else. Could I buy you a drink? He asked, by way of striking up a conversation. No, thank you, she said. I don't drink. What about a little dinner with me in my room? No, I don't think that would be proper, she said. Having had no success with the subtler approaches, the young man pressed directly to the point. I am charmed by your refreshing beauty, mademoiselle, and will give you anything your heart desires if you will spend the night with me. Oh, no, monsieur, I could never do a thing like that. Tell me, the young man said, laughing, don't you ever do anything the slightest bit improper? Oui, said the French girl, I tell lies. You watch how many times in the day you tell lies, and for no reason at all, and how many times you become angry for no reason at all, and then you will see that you are living in an inner world, a subjective world of your own. Understanding means understanding these fundamentals of life's functioning. And if you understand these fundamentals, transformation is not difficult. In fact, understanding itself becomes the transformation. How can a troubled mind understand the way? If a man is disturbed, He will never be filled with knowledge. The word knowledge does not mean what you mean by knowledge. When Buddha uses the word knowledge, he means wisdom, not information. He means knowing, not knowledge. If a man is disturbed, is in conflict, is in confusion, is in a divide, is split inside. If a man is a crowd within, he will never be filled with wisdom. Wisdom needs unity. Wisdom needs integration. Wisdom needs a crystallization of awareness, of watchfulness, of watching your acts, your moods, your thoughts, your emotions, of watching everything that is happening in your inner world. By just watching it, a miracle starts happening. If you start seeing that you tell lies for no reason at all, just that very awareness will become a hindrance. Next time you are just on the verge of telling a lie, a voice within you will say, "Watch, beware, you are moving into the trap again." The next time you are falling into sadness, something inside you will make you alert, will alarm you. This is the path of transforming your energies. AESDHAMMOSANANTANO. AESMAGGOVISUDDHYA. This is the way of purification. This is the eternal law of transformation. An untroubled mind, no longer seeking to consider what is right and what is wrong. A mind beyond judgments, watches, and understands. So the first requirement for a sannyasin is an untroubled mind, no longer seeking to consider what is right and what is wrong. A tremendously important and revolutionary statement. Buddha is saying, don't consider what is right and what is wrong, because if you consider what is right and what is wrong, you will be divided. You will become a hypocrite. You will pretend the right and you will do the wrong. And the moment you consider what is right and what is wrong, you become attached. You become identified. You certainly become identified with the right. For example, you see on the side of the road 100-rupee note. It may have fallen from somebody's pocket. Now the question arises, to take it or not to take it. One part of you says, it is perfectly right to take it. Nobody is looking. Nobody will ever suspect. And you are not stealing. It is just lying there. If you don't take it, somebody else is going to take it anyway. So why miss it? It is perfectly right. But another part says, this is wrong. This money does not belong to you. It is not yours. In a way, in an indirect way, it is stealing. You should inform the police. Or if you don't want to be bothered with it, then go ahead. Forget all about it. Don't even look back. This is greed, and greed is a sin. Now, these two minds are there. One says, it is right, take it. The other says, it is wrong, don't take it. With which mind are you going to identify yourself? You are certainly going to identify with the mind which says it is immoral, because that is more ego-satisfying. You are a moral person. You are not ordinary. Anybody else would have taken the 100-rupee note. In such times of difficulties, people don't think of such delicacies. You will identify yourself with the moral mind. But there is every possibility you will take the note. You will identify yourself with the moral mind, and you will disidentify yourself from the mind which is going to take the note. You will condemn it deep down. You will say, it is not right. It is the sinner part of me, the lower part, the condemned part. You will keep yourself aloof from it. You will say, I was against it. It was my instinct. It was my unconscious. It was my body. It was my mind, which persuaded me to do it. Otherwise, I knew it, that it was wrong. I am the one who knows that it was wrong. You always identify yourself with the right, the moralistic attitude, and you disidentify from the immoral act, although you do it. This is how hypocrisy arises. St. Augustine has said in his Confessions, God, forgive me, because I go on doing things which I know I should not do, and also I don't do things which I know I should do. This is the conflict. This is how one becomes troubled. Hence, Buddha gives you a secret key. This is the key that can take you out of all identification. Don't be identified with the moral mind, because that too is part of the mind. It is the same game. One part saying good, another part saying bad. It is the same mind creating a conflict in you. Mind is always dual. Mind lives in polar opposites. It loves and it hates the same person. It wants to do the act, and it does not want to do the act. It is conflict. Mind is conflict. Don't get identified with either. Buddha is saying, become just a watchfulness. See that one part is saying this, another part is saying that. I am neither, neither this nor that. I am just a witness. Only then is there a possibility that understanding will arise. An untroubled mind, no longer seeking to consider what is right and what is wrong. A mind beyond judgments, watches, and understands. To go beyond judgments of good and bad is the way of watchfulness, and it is through watchfulness that transformations happen. This is the difference between morality and religion. Morality says, choose the right and reject the wrong. Choose the good and reject the bad. Religion says, simply watch both. Don't choose at all. Remain in a choiceless consciousness. Religion is very, very different from morality. Morality is very ordinary, mundane, mediocre. Morality cannot take you to the ultimate. It is not the way of the divine. Morality is only a social strategy. That's why one thing is right in one society, and the same thing is wrong in another society. One thing is thought to be good in India, and the same thing is thought to be bad in Japan. One thing is thought to be good today, and may become wrong tomorrow. Morality is a social byproduct. It is a social strategy to control. It is the policeman inside you, the judge inside you. It is a trick of the society to hypnotize you according to certain conceptions that the society wants to be imposed upon people. So if you are born in a vegetarian family, then the non-vegetarians are the greatest of sinners. One Jaina monk once told me that I love your books, but why do you mention Jesus, Mohammed, and Ramakrishna with Mahavira? You should not mention them in the same line. Mahavira is Mahavira. How can he be compared and put in the same way, in the same category with Jesus, Mohammed, and Ramakrishna? I said, why not? He said, Jesus drinks wine, eats meat. What greater sin can one commit? Mohammed ate meat and got married to 9 women. One has to renounce the woman, and not only one, but 9. A perfect number. In fact, there are no more numbers. 9 is the last number, then again repeats the same. Mohammed got married to 9 women, was a meat eater. How can you put Mohammed with Mahavira? And how can you put Ramakrishna with Mahavira? He used to eat fish. A Bengali is bound to eat fish. His only criticism of my books is that I have put these people together. Now ask a Christian. I once asked a Christian missionary, what do you say about this Jaina monk? He has said this ... Have you any objection? He said, certainly. How can you put Mahavira with Jesus? Jesus lived for humanity, sacrificed himself for humanity. What has Mahavira done? Mahavira is utterly selfish. He thinks only of his own salvation. He cares nothing about others. He never healed a blind person. He never raised a dead person from death. He was just meditating for 12 years in the mountains, in the forests. What more selfishness? And the world is suffering, and people are in great pain, and he didn't come to console them. What more luxury can there be? Just meditating by the side of a river in the forest. What more luxury? What has he done for the poor humanity? Jesus sacrificed himself. He lived and died for others. His whole life was nothing but pure sacrifice. How can you put Mahavira with Jesus? And he too seems to be right. Now, how do you decide? Buddha never healed the sick, the blind, the deaf, the dumb, just meditated. Seems to be selfish. He should have opened hospitals, or at least schools, should have distributed medicine, should have gone to the flood areas and served people ... He never did anything like that. What kind of spirituality is this? According to a Christian, it is pure selfishness. Now, who is right and who is going to decide? We live according to our prejudices. The Jaina monk is wrong, and the Christian missionary is wrong, because both are judging, and to judge is wrong. Jesus is Jesus. He lives in his own way. Buddha is Buddha. He lives in his own way. Unique personalities, unique expressions of God. Neither is a copy of the other, and neither needs to be a copy of the other. And it is beautiful that the world has variety. If there were only Jesuses, and Jesuses again and again, they would look like Ford cars coming out on an assembly line. Each second a Ford car coming out. The same, exactly the same as each other. It is beautiful that Jesus is one and simply one and unrepeatable. And it is good the Buddha is alone and unrepeatable. A really religious person has a non-judgmental approach. The moralist cannot avoid judgments. He becomes a judge. Now, this Jaina monk, an ordinary person, stupid, is ready to judge Jesus, Ramakrishna, Mohammed. He knows nothing, understands nothing, has never meditated, has not known himself yet. That's why he had come to me. He had come to me to understand what meditation is and how to meditate. Meditation has not happened yet, but judgment is there, and he is ready to judge even a man like Jesus, is not even ashamed of what he is doing, is not shy, is very arrogant. And so is the case with the Christian missionary. He knows nothing of meditation, what Buddha was doing, what Mahavira was doing. He knows nothing of the subtle ways in which a Buddha functions. Just as becoming enlightened is the greatest service to humanity possible, nothing more can be done. He has certainly not cured physical eyes, but he is the man who has cured thousands of people's spiritual eyes, and that is real service. He has made thousands of people hear, listen, understand. That is real service. But this Christian missionary, because he runs a primary school and a hospital, thinks himself somebody who is authorized to judge. A moralist always judges. The religious person never judges. He lives in a non-judgmental consciousness. A mind beyond judgments watches and understands. He simply watches and understands. If Buddha had come across Jesus, he would have understood. If Jesus had come across Mahavira, he would have understood. Just watching, seeing, and there is understanding. Know that the body is a fragile jar, and make a castle of your mind. I mind Buddha means consciousness. I mind Buddha means mind with a capital M. Not this ordinary mind that you have, but the mind which happens when all thoughts have disappeared, when the mind is utterly empty of thoughts. Make a castle of your mind because this body is going to die. Don't depend on it. In every trial, let understanding fight for you to defend what you have won. And remember continuously, because the struggle is long and the journey is arduous. Many times you will fall and forget. Many times you will start judging. Many times you will start getting identified with this or that. Many times the ego will assert itself again and again. Whenever the ego asserts itself, whenever identification happens, whenever judgment arises, immediately remember, watch, simply watch, and there will be understanding. And understanding is the secret of transformation. If you can understand anger, immediately you will be showered with compassion. If you can understand sex, immediately you will attain to samadhi. Understanding is the most important word to remember, for soon the body is discarded. Then what does it feel? A useless log of wood. It lies on the ground. And what does it know? Don't depend on the body, and don't remain confined to the body. Use it, respect it, love it, care for it. But remember, you have to leave it one day. It is only a cage. It will be left behind, and the bird will be gone. Before that happens, take care of the bird too. Cleanse your consciousness, because that will be going with you. Your understanding will go with you, not your body. So don't waste too much time in decorating it with cosmetics, with clothes, with ornaments. Don't waste too much time with the body, because the body belongs to the earth, and the earth will claim it back. Dust unto dust. You don't belong to the earth. You belong to some beyond, to some unknown. Your home is in the unknown. Here you are only a visitor. Enjoy the visit, and use it as much as possible to grow in understanding and maturity, so that you can take home your maturity, your understanding, your wisdom. Your worst enemy cannot harm you, as much as your own thoughts, unguarded. When thoughts are unguarded, unwatched, your mind is your greatest enemy. But once mastered, no one can help you as much, not even your father or your mother. But the same mind, if mastered by watchfulness, mastered by meditation, is transformed. It becomes the greatest friend. Nobody can help you as much as it. The mind is a ladder. Unguarded, it takes you downwards. Guarded, it takes you upwards. The same ladder. The mind is a door. Unguarded, it takes you outward. Guarded, it takes you inward. The same mind unguarded becomes anger, hatred, jealousy. Guarded, it becomes compassion, love, light. Be watchful, be awake, be alert, be non-judgmental. Don't be a moralist. Create a religious consciousness. And by religious consciousness is meant a choiceless awareness. Let this phrase sink deep in your heart. Choiceless awareness. This is the very essence of Buddha's teaching. AESDHAMMOSANANTANO. Enough for today. The Dhammapada, The Way of the Buddha, Vol. 2, Chapter Number 2. Chapter title, Drink to the Full and Dance. The 2nd of July, 1979. I'm in Buddha Hall. The first question. Question 1. Beloved Master, would you please speak more about the new phase of your work? Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Raman, and even J. Krishnamurti appear one-dimensional. Did Gurdjieff attempt a multidimensional approach? Was it the cause of his being so greatly misunderstood? Ajit Saraswati, it is but natural to be misunderstood if you really want to help people. If you don't want to help them, you will never be misunderstood. They will worship you. They will praise you. If you only talk, if you only philosophize, then they are not afraid of you. Then you don't touch their lives. And it is beautiful to know complex theories, systems of thought. It helps their egos. It nourishes their egos. They become more knowledgeable, and everybody likes to be more knowledgeable. It is the subtlest nourishment for the ego. But if you really want to help them, then the problem arises. Then you start changing their lives. Then you start trespassing on their egos. Then you start interfering with their centuries and centuries-old habits and mechanisms. Then you create antagonism. They are afraid of you. They are inimical towards you. And they will try in every possible way to misunderstand you, to misrepresent you. One-dimensional people are beautiful flowers, but not of much use. Krishnamurti has been talking for 40 or more years, and people listen. The same people have been listening to him for 40 years, and not an iota of change in their consciousness. Certainly they have become very knowledgeable, argumentative, logical. If you discuss with them, they are the best people to discuss anything with. They go into the most subtle, delicate worlds of thought. They can analyze everything: awareness, meditation, consciousness. They have become very efficient, very clever, but they remain as mediocre as ever, as stupid as ever, with only one difference. Now their stupidity is garbed behind their so-called knowledge that they have gathered from J. Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti has remained just an intellectual phenomenon, because he never took the trouble to enter into people's lives. It is dangerous to enter into people's lives. You are playing with fire. Sri Raman is perfectly okay, sitting silently in his temple. People can come, offer flowers, worship, and he will simply watch. And of course he has a beauty and a grace, but it is one-dimensional. It does not affect life in its totality. At the most, people can be moved by it emotionally. Just as J. Krishnamurti moves people intellectually, Sri Raman moves people emotionally. And the same was the case with Ramakrishna. Many people's emotions were touched, and they would cry tears of joy. But it is not going to transform you. Those tears of joy are momentary. Back home you will be the same. Gurdjieff certainly is a pioneer. With Gurdjieff begins a totally new concept of spiritual life. He has actually called his way the fourth way. Just as I call my way the fourth way, he also calls his way the fourth way. He was immensely misunderstood because he was not interested in imparting knowledge to you. He was not interested in consoling you. He was not interested in giving you beautiful theories, visions, hallucinations. He was not interested in your tears, in your emotions and sentiments. He was not interested in being worshipped by you. He was interested in transforming you. And to transform a person means you have to take a hammer in your hands, because many chunks of that person's being have to be cut. The person is so topsy-turvy that everything is wrong as it is, and it has to be put right. And he has invested so much in his wrong way of life that anybody who wants to change his style of life, not only the circumference, but the center too, he becomes afraid of, he is scared of. Only a few courageous people can enter into the world of a man like Gurdjieff. Tremendous courage is needed, a courage to die, because only then is one reborn. Gurdjieff was a midwife. He was not a teacher, he was a master. Krishnamurti remained a teacher. Raman remained a beautiful individual, enlightened, but just a faraway, distant star. You could watch, and you could appreciate, and you could write poetry about it, but that's all. It remained a distant phenomenon. You could never hope to reach him. The distance was vast, and there was no effort from his side to bridge it. And what could you do? How could you bridge it? If you had been capable of bridging yourself with a man like Raman, there would have been no need to make the bridge. A man of that capacity would be able to transform himself on his own. He would not need a master. Unless Raman tried to make the bridge was not possible. And he was aloof, distant, cool. He was not involved. He knew all misery is false. And, certainly, it is so, but not for those who are in misery. The man who is awake knows that the person who is crying and weeping in his sleep is seeing a dream. True. As far as the man who is awake is concerned, it's perfectly true. But even though it is a dream, a nightmare, for the person who is fast asleep it is a truth. And the man who is fast asleep cannot make any effort to connect himself with the awakened man. Obviously, it is impossible. He cannot even be aware that somebody is awake. He is so much engrossed in his nightmare. Only the awakened can make the effort. But to disturb somebody's sleep, even though he is in a nightmare, is dangerous. Nobody wants to be disturbed. Nobody wants to be interfered with. People have strange ideas. Sleepy people, idiotic people, but they have strange ideas of freedom. They have no freedom. They can't have. They can't afford it in their sleep. How can a sleepy man have any freedom? that they have ideas, great ideas of freedom, and a man like Gurdjieff interferes. His compassion is far greater than the compassion of J. Krishnamurti, Raman, and Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna is beautiful, singing the praise of God, praying, worshipping, dancing. He is something of the beyond. He reminds you that much more is possible in life than is happening to you, but that's all. Through him just a little remembrance can reach you. But your life is such that that remembrance is not going to create any mutation. It will be forgotten. You will enjoy it. Again and again you would like to go to the man and see him dancing and singing and praying ... and you will feel good. This is what Buddha calls counting the sheep of others. He is a beautiful flower, but by looking at a rose you cannot become the rose. Neither can you become a Ramakrishna by looking at Ramakrishna. Great effort is needed. You have to climb the mountain against all hazards. Unless a master tries to approach you in your deep sleep, unless he stirs your being, holds you hard and takes you out of your ignorance, it is impossible. It is almost impossible. But you will be angry at this man who wants to be disturbed. One has become accustomed to a certain way of life. Mind always likes the old, the known, the familiar. Even though it is miserable, still the mind is afraid of the new, because with the new you have to learn again how to behave, how to be. And who wants to learn? You are so efficient with the old. Your ego is so satisfied with the old. Why bother? And when you come across a man like Gurdjieff, he shatters all the nonsense that you have gathered. He shatters mercilessly. Sometimes he has to say things which are not really true, but just to shatter your ideas he has to say them. A friend has asked, how was it possible that a man like Gurdjieff, a man of such great understanding, did not understand the idea of Kundalini energy? He called it Kundabuffer. He was very much against the idea of Kundalini. He used to say that the worst thing that could happen to a person in life is the arousal of Kundalini. The questioner, naturally, is bewildered. But you don't understand the real meaning of Gurdjieff. He called it Kundabuffer because of the nonsense that Theosophists have created in the world. They talked so much about Kundalini, the serpent power, and it was all gibberish. They knew nothing about it. They were just fabricating. They were just inventing theories and ideas. It was all guesswork. In fact, out of 100 books that are written about Kundalini, 99 are absolute nonsense. And the people who had gathered around Gurdjieff had come through theosophical philosophy, hypotheses, doctrines. He was shattering their knowledge. He was not saying anything against Kundalini. How could he say that? He knew far better than Blavatsky, Annie Besant, Alcott, Leadbeater. He knew far better than these people. These people were only experts in creating doctrines, and really they were great experts. They had created almost a world movement about auras and colors and Kundalini ... new words from the ancient spiritual lore. And they created worlds, imaginary worlds, around those words.